webinar. My name is Christina and I will be your host today. This is fourth installment in an 8-module series of in-depth technical webinar focused on the key themes, features of the SDL Tridion Sites 9 content management offering. This webinar will last about 45 minutes and will be followed by a Q&A session. Now I will pass you over to Rick to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Christina. Welcome, everybody. I'm Rick Bonnekoek. We first have a look at the agenda for this webinar. And so the first most important point we will be addressing in this webinar is a feature we call predefined page regions. And we will also be looking at this is a feature we will be providing in the upcoming Tridion Sites 9 release. We'll also be looking at the future. There's features we call user-defined regions, standalone regions, experience optimization in combination with native regions, and also client-side support for client-side frameworks in XPM. That's all stuff that is actually did not make it in the Tridion Sites 9.0 release, but we are planning for in the future. Let me first introduce myself. I'm Rick Bonnekoek, product owner for SDL Tridion Sites. I actually joined a company called Tridion in 2001. And some 10 years ago, I think we already started thinking about doing stuff with regions and page schemas. Some 5 years ago, actually, I was responsible for the design and implementation of region support in the Tridion CM core. And but by then we were doing in component teams, so we actually got to implement some stuff in the content manager core. But actually, turned out that UI team has got different priorities, so we never ended up actually in a release. So I'm quite excited that finally, 5 years later, we now will be able to actually release some regions functionality. I will not be presenting this thing alone. Co-presenter is Arno van Nijnatten.
Hi everyone, my name is Arno van Nijnatten. I'm a product manager for SDL Tridion Sites. Unlike Rick, I've only been here for about 6 years with SDL, but yeah, happy to co-host with Rick on the regions functionality. Although Rick is doing most of the demo and the presentation, I'll be here to support him, and I'll touch upon some subjects related to the future topics that we will address later on.
Okay, so now on to predefined regions, as we call it. To sort of explain what we're trying to do with a predefined region, actually you can look at a cooking analogy. If I want to cook a specific recipe, that will require a specific set of utensils to prepare that recipe. When I have an organized set of utensils, like shown here, and somebody else is actually providing the utensils, I have to hope that the one that filled the set actually knew what I was up to and what kind of utensils I will be needing to cook that recipe. Well, what we want to provide is something else. And so what we want to do is actually provide a neatly organized drawer for the utensils. And would be actually in this picture you see a bit what I mean. Would be even nice if there are some labels, make it clear which utensils should go in which part and how many of each. And if I have this, it makes it much easier for the one filling the drawer to put the right utensils in, and makes it much more likely that actually the recipe will succeed. Now if we go back to the domain of web content management, well, let's have a look at a typical web page. If we zoom in, on the middle section here, and because actually so now ignoring the header and footer part, we'll come back to that later. But if you look at the middle section, you see typically there are still several sections within that, and that's supposed to contain different kinds of content. The experience we offer in the CME looks like this. So it's just a flat list of component presentations, comparable to that unorganized set of utensils. So basically, what we want to offer is comparable to that organized drawer. So here you see what we do want to provide in the CME. It shows you a region structure in the form of tree view, and the regions in the CME correspond to the regions on the web page. You see here. And the idea is that this region structure is actually predefined by means of a page schema, which is a new concept we are introducing. Now I will illustrate this with a demo. And so let me show you a page creation flow. So I'm going to create a new page. Oh, this should look familiar to people that know Tridion, right? No. Just need to fill in a name, a file name. Page has a page template. And what's new here is to see there is actually also a page schema. It's currently set to none, and that's if only for backward compatibility reasons. The page schema is not a required thing. You can still have, let's say, a legacy page or just old style pages that don't have a page schema. But if I now switch the page template to another one, which I prepared, I see actually this one has a page schema. So this page template automatically gives me a page schema. The idea is going forward that we want that page schema to also act as the metadata schema for the page, similar to what we do for components. A component does not have a schema for its content and for its metadata. It just has one schema that can define both. Likewise, the page schema can define both the structure of the page, let's say the content of the page, and its metadata. But by the same token, if you already have existing pages and you want to move to this page schema, yeah, then it may not be possible, or at least not without impact to use that approach. And so we still also allow the page to have another schema for its metadata. But again, normally you would expect the page schema to also act as metadata schema. Now you see, pages used to have a component presentation tab, like shown before. That is gone. There's now a design tab, which gives me a tree view. And you see, I have my page. It already contains three regions. That is basically why we call it predefined. So the structure is predefined. It's not up to the one creating the page now to come up with which region are contained. There are. Again, the flow is I use a page, it uses a certain page template. That in turn it gives me a certain schema, and this schema gives me this predefined region structure. You see now that I can actually still select the page itself as well in this tree. And there's some information about called constraints which can be defined in the schema. And it tells me here that actually the page itself is not supposed to contain any component presentations. And it's basically shown here. We're still working on actually improving the usability of this a bit, because it's currently actually, you need to read carefully to see that this is the case. So this will be improved. And you see that the add button is disabled. So I'm not supposed to add component presentations directly on the page like you used to do before. And if we now go to the hero region, and you see the add button does get enabled. Get some information here about the region and what it's meant for. And it also gives me information about the so-called constraints. So this tells me actually this region can contain maximum one component or component presentation. And what I'm doing here, by the way, is I am creating the DXA homepage. So I'm just using the region structure that is used in the DXA example site for the homepage. In the DXA homepage, there's a hero region, and that is actually supposed to contain a carousel. And the carousel is a kind of widget. So that's why you see actually it's supposed to contain only one component presentation representing that carousel. And there's also constraints on the schema of the component and the component template. Now let me actually add the component presentation in that region. And now the component presentation is in the homepage folder. And now you see actually there are two components in this folder, but one is grayed out. And that is because of these constraints. And so the constraints say the component schema has to be item list. Well, this homepage list has such a schema. The homepage welcome actually is an article, so it does not have the right schema. And that's where the constraints are guiding the user in putting the right stuff in the region. As it already indicates, okay, homepage welcome is not applicable. If I'm stubborn and select it anyways, I get a warning saying, sorry, but that's the wrong schema. So the add button does not get enabled, so I cannot put the wrong stuff in this region. So I really have to do the homepage list. And as soon as I select that, I automatically get the carousel component template selected. We already had before, of course, if you select a component, then the list of component templates is restricted to the ones that are associated with that component. In this case, actually, there are multiple component templates associated with that schema, but because of the constraint in this page schema, I don't even have to select anything anymore, as it's already predefined that the component template should just be carousel. So again, making it easier for the user to select this. So I've added this, and now immediately see another warning saying, so you already put the maximum allowed number of component presentations in this region. Again, there was a constraint saying, okay, you should not have more than one carousel in this region. I put it in, and now I cannot even put more in. I can go to the main region, slightly different constraints here. So it says, okay, main region, I want articles to go in there. Automatically select the article template for me, so I don't have to do that. And in this case, I want the demo, okay, so I might allow two component presentations in there. So let me actually put the homepage welcome in there. Component templates is given. And here is yet another example. And here I have the 3-column layout region, where actually the constraints are not specifically constraining the schema. It says, okay, I just want one of these component templates, and any schema associated with these component templates is fine. Actually, the maximum number of components is also not restricted here, so this is actually a pretty relaxed region, but still it is ensuring that component templates that make sense in such a 3-column layout are used. So I could actually say, okay, so the home page has the head office location. It's automatically selecting the right component templates for me, again, because of the constraint. And let me put the widget with the latest news in there, automatically selecting the right component template for me. And the video, automatically right component template. I'm done. And with this, basically, I've constructed exactly what's on the DXA homepage. But now, you see, instead of a flat list with a lot of knowledge of what component templates to use and to get the desired result, I get much more guidance from the system on what to do. I won't publish this one directly, but I'm going to get to another, basically the same page which was already published. If I now view this on site, you see all except for somebody modifying the default content that we see there. It really looks exactly like the DXA homepage still, which also immediately showcases something that this works in conjunction with DXA and with XPM for that matter. I'll open this in XPM. If I now select this thing in the hero, and you see actually XPM is aware that this is the homepage list. It is in the hero region, and we put some additional support in XPM actually make it a bit clearer where the regions are. Likewise, select this one. See, it's the homepage welcome component. It is in the main region. Something here. Oh, no. Shouldn't just click on the link. Select the latest news. No, this was actually not what I wanted to show. But that's just also in the 3-column layout region. So you see basically everything is integrated here. So I got a better user experience on the CME, but all the other functionality just still works. So this is basically the user experience we were focusing on with this feature to make it, especially in the CME, a lot clearer what the page structure is and give better guidance. If you then more technically look, okay, so if I've done this, how do I use these regions in my templates or the views? And so then in general, so you already saw the page structure is now explicit in the CME. It will also be navigable through the Tom.NET API. I'll come back to that a bit later. And so in templates, you can just, if you want to do stuff with the region structure, you can use the Tom.NET API to just navigate the structure and know in which region the components are. If you're using Dreamweaver templating, which we will actually slowly want to move away from, but okay, if you are using that, we also provide a new TBB that helps you using regions in a Dreamweaver TBB, in a Dreamweaver template. And last but not least, already mentioned, so there's compatibility with DXA. So in particular, we will close together with the Tridion Sites 9 release, we'll be providing DXA 2.1 release. and then that one is just wired up. So if you use these regions in the content manager, it will automatically work in DXA as well. DXA already had the concept of regions earlier, like XPM for that matter, and it will be just wired up that if you use these regions in the CME without actually having to do anything further, and they will become available in regions in DXA, which in turn will make them regions in XPM. And this is just a screenshot of the Tom.NET documentation. And so just to show you that you would see, for example, the page .NET object now has a region property, which you can use to go over regions and so on and so on. And so this is just documented. And this is an example of using that new extract components from regions, TBB. Where you can see in the, well, it's actually maybe not so easy to see, it's a bit small I see, but, and so what this thing does is actually it puts items in your templating package for each region, and the items are then a list of component presentations. And so before you already had this extract components from page TBB, which gives you a package item, a list of all the top level component presentations. But now you can also easily, in a Dreamweaver template, iterate over all the component templates in a specific region. And you also get actually an item telling you all the regions. So you could even create a Dreamweaver template that iterates over all regions and then over all the component presentations in each region, for example, which is what we also provide. So the default Dreamweaver page design is now also using that to show you everything, the region structure as well. But again, we hope that actually people don't even use Dreamweaver templating that much and are more going towards the DXA method, which again, out of the box just provides you the entire integration. So in summary, and with this feature, the page content is now structured explicitly, and that is in the CM API, in the CME, and also in XPM. What I didn't show you yet, but is possible, is that the region structure doesn't have to be flat structure, that it can even be nested, and so you can really do more advanced structuring scenarios as well. Very important feature, part of this feature is that the business user, the page editor, can be guided by constraints for each region, which is supposed to simplify his or her life significantly. Again, the organized utensils drawer analogy. And yeah, it drills down two parts. So the user is guided to select the right components based on the right schema, and the component template can be predefined so that the user doesn't even have to explicitly select that component template. And the entire thing is compatible with DXA and with XPM regions. And in particular, DXA 2.1 will showcase native regions. So it's not only about that integration, but what we do is really now use these page and region schemas in DXA. So instead of before DXA, you still use different component templates to indicate which region it goes in, and now we can simplify that and just use the regions mechanism. Then let's have a look at the things we were considering post Size 9 release. And so basically one step beyond predefined regions is what we call user-defined regions. And it is really sort of building on top of the concept of predefined regions. So you can really say, in this illustration, I may have actually sort of a predefined structure already, but I may want to allow my page editor to actually insert additional regions. And so the structure doesn't have to be completely predefined. I may want to leave it up to my page editor to give him some control over the layout of the page by means of actually inserting certain regions which are still defined by means of schemas. And it just gives more control to the page editor. There is actually a really nice showcase of this concept we want to do. That is the DXA container framework that Nicholas created. There's really nice video of that. I won't be showing that here because actually, again, this is about the future, so not the main point. But the idea, basically, what we want behind that user-defined regions is we want to address similar use cases. So give the page editor control over the layout. And so actually, if you look at that video, that is pretty much the kind of experience we want to provide. But then now based on the concept of regions and region schemas. So it will not be exactly the same, but you get what we're trying to achieve there. And then there's another thing we call standalone regions. And the idea there is I've been skipping the header and footer section earlier. And the reason is that what we've looked at so far with the predefined regions, that's really about structuring the content of a page. And if you look at a header and a footer region, that is typically actually shared across multiple pages in your site. Right? So you just have, if not all pages, they have exactly the same header and the footer. And if I now actually want to change the content of the header and the footer, I don't want to go changing all the pages. And so actually I want to centrally manage the content of that header and footer region somewhere. I want to just change one thing and then automatically all these pages should be updated. And so the idea there is that so we need the ability that a region is not embedded in each and every page. It's actually an entity of itself, which I can include in and reuse in multiple pages, but it's really one entity which I can centrally manage. If you look at the DXA web application, DXA is currently using the concept of include pages, which is pretty much solving that thing with by means of pages. And that's also why we said, okay, we don't need this right away. Actually, that solution is quite okay. But going forward, we want to also provide a more built-in functionality there. Again, going a step further with regions. Okay, so it should be possible to have regions which are actually standalone, centrally managed entities. Another use case for standalone regions would be where your web page may not be managed in Tridion at all. For example, you may have a web shop, e-commerce driven website where actually so the pages are driven by another system, but you may have some regions, some slots if you wish on these pages, which you still want to manage in Tridion. Again, a use case where it says it's obviously not a matter then of having a region structure in your pages. You still have a kind of a region, but it should be just a separate entity in Tridion, which you can then link to from your externally managed system. And there are yet other use cases we are looking at to address with standalone regions. One of the things what it could do is help with page localization or translation. For example, currently if you want to localize a page file name, to basically translate the page's URL, if you localize a page, you decouple the entire page, but also the set of component presentations. And what you may want to do is actually translate the URL of the page, but not decouple the set of component presentations. Standalone regions could be used for that use case. Let's say, okay, so I create actually, my component presentation, which I do not want to decouple, I put in a separate region entity. And if I then localize the page, I don't localize that region entity, so I can translate the page URL, but not immediately decouple all component presentations. I have a question mark here because this is actually, it's a possible use case. It's the thing is that it also complicates the matter a bit, complicates things because you would actually now each page you would have to have two entities in CM to do that. So we are considering it as a use case, but we could also do other. So you could say, okay, so maybe we should just have a way to localize a page URL without the rest of the page. So something we call delta blueprinting. But again, it's a potential use case, and it would actually be good to get some feedback on whether this would be considered a good use case in practice. Another thing is if your regions are separate entities, sort of automatically you can have different security on the regions. So you can, for example, make it possible that if I'm in a child publication, a local editor can he may allow him to edit specific regions of the page by giving right permissions on these regions being separate entities, but not on others or not on the page itself. Okay, so this is it for our use case we're considering for the standalone region. Then a word on experience optimization and native regions. And first of all, the experience optimization already uses the concept of regions as well, of course, and that is of course still going to work, and it will combine with native and non-experience optimization native regions as well. And even it can even combine in general with native regions. If you look at what I said is DXA will be compatible with these native regions, so that's just the new page regions in Content Manager. At DXA there's also an experience optimization module for DXA. And basically, because DXA is going to be compatible with this native region, that module is automatically also going to be compatible. And so you can already now create a region which you then configure to use in the DXA experience optimization module, configure as an experience optimization region. So you can still put in the fallback content in Content Manager, but still experience optimization will also kick in to find applicable promotions. And so that is already going to a combination that's going to work in Site 9. But what we won't do yet is actually leverage the native regions in XO itself. And so in experience optimization, you can, for a promotion, you can indicate which region it should trigger on. And that region is it's just a experience optimization configuration of which regions you have. So and now we have the predefined regions and the region schema. It makes a lot of sense, of course, to make experience optimization pick up these regions defined in schema from CM. But again, that's currently not planned for the 9.0 release. And now I will hand over to Arno to actually tell something about the client-side frameworks in support in XPM, which is actually admittedly not related to regions at all, but we just needed a vehicle to also tell something about our plans there.
Yes, thank you, Rick. So let me explain what this is about indeed. So XPM is currently using HTML comments, and HTML comments do not really work well with the client-side frameworks that are out there. So frameworks like Vue and React and Angular, for instance. So these frameworks do not want you to manipulate the DOM yourself, and that's why we want to introduce the ability in XPM to use data attributes for XPM markup. So next to the current possibility for HTML comments, we will look into adding that support for data attributes. Because the data attributes also give you the ability to embed custom data attributes on all HTML elements, actually. So another thing that is necessary that we need to change there is that XPM now initializes on document load. So that means that whenever the page is loaded, XPM is parsing the comments and can only handle whatever it knows is on the page at the time of document loading. And that doesn't really work well with web applications that are loading content asynchronously. So XPM currently doesn't really handle changes on the page on a single page application, for instance by navigating to other pages or making changes in the selection or whatever that you're doing on the page there. So what we want to do there is make XPM react actually to DOM changes and then determine the context upon selection of the content so that it knows what kind of data it's talking about at the time. So if you're talking about, if you click on a certain text field, it knows about the XPath to the text field. It actually can determine which component presentation it's about and which page it is on. And somewhat related to what Rick was saying about native region, not native regions, but standalone regions or experience regions actually, is that that could really work well as well with XPM with these new things that we want to add there, because we want to look at the possibilities of actually also using XPM on top of a page that is not even managed by Tridion. Where, for instance, only a region, an experience region from Tridion is actually injected into a slot on a page that is managed by an e-commerce framework there. So that's basically what we wanted to. That's what I wanted to explain about the upcoming changes in XPM post 9.0. We don't have any hard deadlines on those things yet, but I see there are. So I think, Christina, you want to take it from here again, and then we can have a look at answering the questions in the chat, right?
Yes, this is the end of our presentation.
Okay, thank you for presenting today. We are now going to open it up the Q&A session. If you have any questions, please enter the question into the Q&A box.